Ladies and gentlemen, we're once again back here to point out that Scotland just beat Denmark 4-2 and we're going to the World Cup. Also, it is awards season here at the Golden Shovel Wrestling Podcast. This week we are working through a long list of the best tag teams of 2025. Let's get in here. We are a man down for the first time in a few weeks, but it's myself and Daz who are going to run through this long list and whittle it down to our final shortlist. Daz, how we doing?
On top of the world. Anyone who listened to Wednesday's podcast will know that Ross was flagging 30 minutes in. We had to take him off. We ran out of substitutions. We are playing a man down. But yes, high on life, Saunders. I could do a million squashes tonight and I would not be tired.
We only need one this week. Luckily, how this is going to work is that I have built some long lists for each of the awards and we're going to break them all down into short lists, and at the end of December, I think it's the 27th, 28th in my calendar, we are going to do our award show where we'll pick one from each of the categories, and then there's some other categories that we've just gone straight to short lists because they're more obvious. This week it is the best tag teams of 2025. I'm going to throw out a long list, a little bit of a blurb for each tag team. I'll do 2 or 3 at a time. We'll just discuss them. There is no bracket, there is no picking, there's no 1 versus 1 at the end of it. We're going to be left with somewhere between 3 and 5 that we'll take through to the main event. We'll start off with a little bit of recency bias, Daz. And I'm going to just throw out the first name of AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. So you've got down here my notes that bit of a surprise to see them working together, but it did pay off. They won the Raw Tag titles. They're exciting. It's good to watch. You've got a veteran with an up-and-comer. The obvious drawback is they've been a team for a matter of weeks versus some of the more established teams over the course of the year. Whilst we're talking about a luchador, I'm going to just throw out an honourable mention for Rey Fenix, who has been one of the best tag team wrestlers of the year. However, because of the situation in Andrade, I've actually taken him off the list and said they weren't really a tag team for long enough, probably should have won a title. So first 2 names to talk about, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee's team, and a little bit of an honourable mention for Rey Fenix, who was unreal in the tag team division.
Rey Fenix and Andrade were on course to win tag team gold, there's no doubt about that. 2 very talented wrestlers. I like the inclusion of AJ Lee, as they're affectionately known, amongst the IWC, purely to mock the fact that AJ Lee has not been on regularly scheduled programming up until Monday night. So I like the inclusion. They are a newly formed team. Great chemistry. I think AJ Styles could team up with a broom. To be honest, he's that good. It's nice to see Dragon Lee get a bit of love on the main roster because it has been difficult for him. They were a team thrown together by circumstance as part of AJ's farewell to put those titles on him until such times as he can get them. Maybe another title that he can carry. So yeah, that's a good inclusion for me. Probably not going to make the shortlist if we're looking at the grand scheme of things over the last year. But given they're fairly new to working with each other, they've put on a good show.
I think it's hard to disagree. I think the reason that we're doing it in this style is we can have the long conversation, but doing the actual award at the end of the year with allowing for things to mature, and maybe they sneak back into that list if they've a really short 6 weeks. And I'm more intrigued to see how that plays out into 2026, if I'm honest. Now, back to a couple of teams who absolutely could make the shortlist, and the one thing that I did do on this tag team is I kept it gender neutral, if you like. There is no men versus women because there's not enough to really do men versus women.
Yeah.
And one team that I think has stood out this year that I would propose that makes the shortlist for the award, and that is Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. Again, put together, I think they're one of the few tag teams who have had a long story. The reluctance to pair up the best friends angle, the nicknames, the pet names, the creativity, the fact that we've been able to showcase both women's strengths, arguably picked back up from what was, I'm not saying a low point, but Charlotte's Mania feud with Tiffany didn't really hit the heights. Obviously came back from injury at the start of the year. Now we're starting to see that wee bit of friction again. The War Game story's happening, it's not happening. There's a definite future story. So I want to mention their work. On the flip side, and the women's side, I think the Kabuki Warriors are the best women's tag team in terms of the overall package, but I think their work together didn't really kick off until post SummerSlam. I think obviously Asuka was in the Queen of the Ring tournament and went far, and we thought probably should have won it. And then obviously they've came back together. They've had this split with EO. great storytelling. We've got the War Games coming up. I think Asuka's looking like this monster, horrible person heel, which is a hard role to play. But put them in there, and then obviously I will mention the Judgment Day, but I think the fact that obviously it was Liv and Raquel and then it was Roxanne and Raquel means that it's a little bit fractured. Women's tag teams as well. Thoughts on them?
Yeah. I'll start with Charlotte and Alexa. It's far outlived as long as life expectancy, in my opinion, and I thought it would. Not unhappy about it. They've made the women's tag team titles relevant again, which was really, really important, putting the belts on them to begin with. They've helped to showcase some talent. They've also helped to put together teams like the Kabuki Warriors and also Lyra and Bailey, who have recently started to tag together. It helps bring more people back into the card and get some more faces on TV. On the flip side, again, the Kabuki Warriors are a much more recently put together tag team again, if you could even say that, because they have been a tag team for a long time, but off TV, the injury, etc., Asuka returning at Queen of the Ring, and it quickly fell into a tag team angle with the breakup with Io Sky. So, loving their work. Asuka's always been captivating. I'm still a little bit on the fence about Kairi Sane, but she's in the right place. She's in a safe pair of hands with Asuka. So they're the right people to hold the titles. I said it in the pod we recorded earlier. They're absolutely the right people to be tag team champions. I don't think they're the best women's tag team. I also don't think Charlotte and Alexa are the best women's tag team. I don't know if maybe the tag team will come up later in the list. Do you have another women's tag team on the list?
I don't actually, so I'm happy for you to pitch it right now.
Yeah, it's a shame Ross isn't here. So Ruka and Zarya, in my opinion, have been the best. And I think that's where it's difficult sometimes to think about. I mean, how long has it been since we started doing this podcast? It actually dates back about 7 months. Do you know what I mean? It's been a long, long time. And I just think they've consistently been working together for a large, large part of that. They've stepped up when required onto the main roster more than once to help fill a programme for Charlotte and Alexa. They've been involved in some big matches, but even their work in NXT as well, they're relentless. I think in terms of longevity, they're the best women's tag team this year. But I think if you're looking at the box office, then the two you've mentioned are much more likely to be on the shortlist. But for me, in terms of workers, they two are probably in the mix for best tag team. But if we're looking at what they actually bring to the main event and the big shows and selling out the big crowds, then I would probably agree that Asuka and Kairi Sane are the biggest attraction. And
I don't necessarily think the Kabuki Warriors have been the best in 2025. I am alluding massively to the history this year. They are a proper tag team together, not a thrown together thing. I was trying to keep it on the main roster, but they are on the list, and I cut them at 11. Not because I think they're the 11th best tag team or 12th best tag team, but because I'm like, let's trim it to the main roster. But I'm more than happy if we think it's been such a strong year, and I do agree. Like Sol Ruka is poised for superstardom because of that work. That should be recognised, because I do have on my list of awards, I think there's an up and comer best newcomer type award that we'll round into what that actually looks like over the course of the next few weeks as we prep, and she's definitely in that bracket for me because she's one of again that women's division of like there's so many people poised for superstardom,
lots and lots.
So I'm now going to take over to the factions. And for me, there's obviously 3 main factions that stand out in the WWE. I have cut the Judgment Day from this list. I mentioned them from the women's side, I've cut them from the men's side. Not because I don't like their work, and I actually think, as we've praised in the last few weeks, how good JD McDonough is starting to look as a singles competitor and where Dom's ultimately going to go. I think it's because we've been sitting waiting for the inevitable breakup, and we are looking more to what the individuals will do as they move on. It's done its job. I think the Liv Morgan injury has extended it 6 months longer than what we were probably hoping for. The two factions I want to talk about. One is the Solo Sikoa MFT/Bloodline. Again, I've actually pulled them from the list, but I'm willing to talk about them because they had that many injuries that for most of the year it was Solo and Jacob's feud that was really carrying that. The rest of them were off telly or have joined the business halfway through the year. And then the other faction that's worth mentioning is the Wyatt Six. I do think that once Gacy and Loomis got up to speed, after there was inevitably some ring rust, they were a great addition to the what is a relatively high-flying SmackDown tag team division, which I am saving for the end of this topic because that's where
I do not doubt it. Yeah, I do not doubt it at all.
They've added a nice new angle to it. I do think that the faction itself, as momentum has slowed, now that is most likely down to the ill health of Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy's father. I have no doubt that that's why he's not been on telly as much.
Yes.
But Loomis and Gacy, I was sceptical at the start, but probably, I guess the victims of the lack of house shows. However, you also can't put the Y6 on a house show because it ruins the mystique of debuting them and that type of thing. So probably victims of circumstance, but I think had a great solid year. So thoughts on them and the other two. We're happy that the other two have worth mentioning, but aren't really top 10 because of the circumstances around there.
Yeah, I'll start with MFT. I really feel for the MFT because if it wasn't for the array of Tongans being injured, I actually think that Solo and the original Tongans who were involved in the MFT actually stood a really good chance of having a breakout year as a small faction. I do think they stood a really, really good chance. They were hampered by injury. And to be honest, it's probably testament to how good Solo Sikoa is that he's managed to keep this angle alive with the addition of JC Mateo and other big Tongan who wears the face paint now. And they just kind of rotate in and out each week who he's being seen with, and he's done well to keep the angle alive. I don't really know where it goes from here, but you're right, they've been a victim of injury so much that I don't think it's fair to include them in the running. White 6, I think you're absolutely right. There's no other way to let them wrestle other than on TV because the appearances and the mystique behind them goes. If people go, yeah, that's cool, but I watched you wrestle a dart match last week, so it's not really that cool. The only thing I'm probably a little bit critical of with White 6 is I understand that Gacy and Loomis are probably your best workers, right? Because Bo hasn't wrestled a lot for a long time. Obviously, he does have his own personal issues, and that's totally understandable why he's not on TV. It just seems strange to me to push them into the tag division to make them champions and not include the guy who's a bona fide tag team wrestler and did that for most of, if not all of, his WWE run in Eric Rowan. He's a familiar face, way more familiar than Dexter Loomis is amongst WWE fans. And it just seems strange to me that they don't alternate those titles a la the New Day, where any mix of the Wyatt 6 can tag. And I think that would have kept it a lot fresher, especially when they were going through that ring rust, is rather than just have... But see, off the top of my head, has Eric Rowan actually wrestled a match? Off the top of my head?
Don't believe so.
I don't think so either. So it's a little bit strange to me that we're only mixing so many people, but he's going to be wrestling in this 5v5. No, he's not, is he? He must be. So we've got the 5v5 traditional coming up, but this is a guy with no in-ring work for a long, long time. It just seems odd to me that I think they could have got off to a better start if they had a rotation in this tag team where 1 week it's Gacy and Rowan, the next week it's Loomis and Rowan, maybe for a PLE, Bo Dallas or Uncle Howdy, if you want to call him, will wrestle alongside one of the others and just help bring them back up to speed because they started really slowly when they won the title. I'm up to speed with them now and I'm in. I like where we're headed, but it has been curtailed a wee bit by the absence of Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy, which is totally out with the realms of control. So probably won't be in the running, although I do think could be a shoe-in to win it next year.
They're definitely on that list of if the next 6 weeks works out, we might have to have the conversation again. But I'm with you on that. They've done half a year, essentially. You did mention one tag team that is again worth bringing up as part of this long list, and that is the New Day. You still think they might be the greatest tag team of all time when it was the three of them, or at least I would be willing to have that conversation. I think
they are the greatest tag team of all time, but I don't think they're the best. It's that old adage that we speak about.
Yes,
but yeah, I think they are the greatest faction.
I agree.
And if not ever, way up there in terms of longevity and just great to watch.
Again, I'd be pulling them out of the run for this.
Their heel work hasn't been good. It was a pivot they had to make because Big E was not coming back. Do you know what I mean? So they were stuck. The addition of Grayson Waller was awful. But I also feel for them because they're wrestling in an awful division. So it's like, really, how much good work can they do?
They also didn't drive home the heel turn immediately. That is sat for months and months and months.
The best work they've done has been...
That was also 2024.
Yeah, the best work they've done is Xavier Woods' big hats. That's the best work they've done. And I feel for them because they are still talented wrestlers, but we're running out of time to do something with them, especially Kofi. Kofi's getting way up there in terms of age, so yeah, it's a tricky one.
And now we get to the part of the night where we could probably put through 3 of the teams, but if we get into 2, we'd be. And I'm looking at the SummerSlam 2025 calendar just purely based on this. This was a hell of a match. The teams that we want to talk about here would be DIY, the Motor City Machine Guns, the Street Profits, and Fraxium. Now, again, honourable mention to Ray Phoenix and Andrade, but I can't possibly have a conversation. But DIY for me here are the vets in this type of match, even though they are the second most tenured tag team. They are a tag team who we just know and love from NXT and all the way through. As good as it gets, they are compelling, and in the ring, they're good in the ring. They tell good stories, they deliver clinics. They epitomise what tag team wrestling should look like in modern professional wrestling. Again, to me, they're almost like a younger, maybe the younger version of the Motor City Machine Guns, who I think actually they're stronger 2024. They haven't held gold this year, but they've been part of some epic matches, a number of TLC matches this year, and the type of things. They are, for me, one of my favourite tag teams of all time. I watched a lot of TNA back in the day, and they were absolutely epic. The Profits, Street Profits, who I know you are a huge Profits fan. The spot for Doc at SummerSlam is one of the spots of the year. It's bonkers, and we're just like, Spanish flying, like, no, he's Spanish flying off a start rope and he's going to die. But they're also in that realm of they're going to split them, and they're not going to split them. What they're going to do, because they do have one bona fide star, and Montez Ford. And actually, my favourite tag team of the year, not necessarily the best. I have loved Fraxium's work. The presentation, the entrance, their work in NXT. I do think they need to pull the trigger and put the belts on them at some point to see what they've got. I mean, we've talked on the main pod during the week there about they've got some singles matches in this year's Home Challenge. Let's make sure we don't lose them for the tag division at the moment, because the Raw division itself is really weak. SmackDown division now is a little bit held hostage by the Y6. Let's not lose that as we move forward into 2026.
Yeah. So cutting it down to 2 is difficult because it's maybe easier than I think it is, right? But all of these tag teams have a hold on me for different reasons. Gargano and Ciampa, I was an avid viewer. There was probably a time where I watched more NXT than I did main roster stuff during the Black and Gold era, because I was just totally taken in by everything. With Black and Gold, it was perfect. Which is probably why Triple H gets a little bit more leeway for me, because he used to book the shit out of NXT and it was just unreal. And Ciampa and Gargano have undeniable chemistry together. It doesn't matter what they're doing. You could film a mukbang with the two of them and I'd sit and watch it. It'd be great. But I don't feel like their tag teams as compelling on the main roster. I think they're much better suited to being singles in terms of the story they can tell. Their in-ring ability is undoubted, and they deserve to be in the mix for their ability. So that's one of the teams I'm going to eliminate, right, to take it to 2. This is where it gets really tough, because I'll start with the team you ended with. Fraxium are undeniable in terms of ability. They have flew into that SmackDown tag team division initially as a look at these guys, and then quickly became a wow, let's actually look at these guys. Nathan Fraser, and they've got the perfect mix, I think, because Axiom can do the mic work, but Nathan Fraser's just a little bit better. But Nathan Fraser can do the high flying stuff, but Axiom's just a little bit better. So they complement each other perfectly. They're a brilliant tag team. They actually really remind me of Paul London and Brian Kendrick, believe it or not. I just get such good vibes for watching them wrestle. So I feel like I need to have them on the shortlist. But then who do I cut? I
mean, I'm happy to. I mean,
I can't take 3 because
Fraxium remind me of late 90s WCW, that type of filthy animals with Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman, that type of high flyer. That's what in my head. Probably somebody pointing out they're totally different in the ring, and they probably were, but I was 6, 7, 8 years old at the time, and now I'm in my 30s, so my memory will not be the same. I mean, I'm looking at my list and my notes, and I'm thinking to myself, I think we need to take 1 from the women's division.
Oh, without doubt.
If not 2, and possibly 2 from the SmackDown division, and that gives us 4 to whittle down at the end of the month.
I'm willing to cut it to 2, right? And I now have a toss-up, right? Because
So
I
we
like you.
locking for Axiom into
Yes,
the short
yeah,
list.
I think you have to. They've
So
had the best year.
we're going to lock in for Axiom. We're going to lock in Charlotte and Alexa, and we're going to lock in Sol Rucker and Zarya, because I do agree. I think that what's been brilliant. They've managed to do the right thing with elevating them as individuals whilst using the tag team. Like, it's a different
That's
story.
one of the things I'm most impressed about, is the fact that they've managed to remain a tag team, because Sol Rucker has had the singles push, but Zarya is still incredible to watch as a tag team. So anyway, so we've locked in those three. So it's just about who do we cut, right? And this is good, because
so it's worth pointing out that the Guns haven't held titles this year. The Profits have.
Yes,
but
however,
the Guns have felt so.
The Guns are consistent.
The glue in the division a little bit.
The Guns are so consistent, and this is probably where it's really, really interesting, because I am a massive fan of the Profits, in particular Tez. I do like Doc, but Tez, in my opinion, should be the guy to win the US title. And you are a huge fan of Sabin, the Motor City Machine Gun, so it's really, really tricky to try to whittle these guys down. I'm gonna pick Motor City Machine Guns, I think, because Tez and Ford were good champions. Tez and Doc were great champions, but they didn't have to be, because I think anybody out of the 4 teams we've spoken about could have held the gold at any given time and been great champions. And I think you're right, you hit the nail on the head. I think Motor City Machine Guns were the glue in that division. They were the one constant, because you did have the tease of the breakup. You had DIY, you had the introduction of Fraxium. So I think Motor City Machine Guns were the one solid, continuous piece of that division throughout the year, and helped to put over new teams as well as established teams like the Profits. And these two guys probably are the vets in that tag division, given their experience in pro wrestling. So I'm going to give a bit of love to the glue that does the dirty work for the division and helps elevate it. I'm going to go with the Motor City Machine Guns.
I think that's a fair assessment, and it's such a difficult thing to pick, because, as I, again, make as many notes as I can. DIY versus the Champions, Profits versus Guns was that first TLC triple threat match earlier in the year, which was, when we get to match of the year, a dinger of a show, by the way, because there's away for about 3 hours, I know. But I like the logic. I think we've got 4 teams on a short list that for 4 different reasons. It showcases what we like talk about on the Golden Shovel Wrestling podcast. So with that being said, Motor City Machine Guns, Sol Rucker and Zarya, Charlotte and Alexa, and
Fraxium
are the shortlist for Tag Team of the Year. Let us know in the comments below any one of our links. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who would your pick be? If we get enough input from this watching or listening, we will take consideration of the award show. And if it's an overwhelming favourite, they may win it. And if we disagree with you, we'll ignore it. Take it easy, guys. We'll see you back in Wednesday for the usual pod.